Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fencing Flops. Today's episode is going to be about the fencing scene from the movie The Fallen from 2016.
Sparks, you're up. Remember what I showed you?
Not really.
And God?
Alright, so let's stop there. There are immediately two things that I see about this scene. First of all, the location that they're fencing in is definitely not ideal. Now, I understand that some fencing clubs, particularly ones that aren't independent, that are part of a school, like this one is, do not always get the first choice. However, typically they have a little bit more luck than this. The problem with this area is that it is very small. Now, it looks like it has decent flooring. The best kind of flooring for fencing is hardwood, not very damaging to your legs like cement is. That's not good, but again, maybe they didn't have a choice. The main thing that is bad about it is just its size. That looks like an okay area for doing drills and exercises. However, for actually practicing fencing, you need to have a strip. A regulation strip is 1.5 to 2 meters wide and 14 meters long, with ideally a little bit of runoff all around it. It shouldn't be up right against a wall if you can help it, and it shouldn't be on a raised pedestal. This location doesn't have a strip at all, which is immediately something that's wrong with it. But again, some places have to settle for certain areas. The other thing that I want to bring up is probably the funniest thing that I've found about this scene, which is what they're fencing with. There are 3 styles of fencing: foil, epee, and saber. They all have a very distinct weapon and a different set of rules. So what's funny about this scene is that they are fencing saber. So they're fencing saber, but they're using what looks like a hybrid weapon. I have a few examples here. This is a foil. What we're going to be looking at is the very tip of the weapon. This end here is a barrel. That's how it detects hits, because it is a thrust-only weapon. So that's the only part of the blade that needs to be able to detect hits. However, they are not fencing foil. They are fencing saber. Now immediately, you can see saber is most defined by this knuckle guard. The end does not have a barrel. Now, it doesn't have a barrel because it is a cutting weapon. You can thrust with this, but it's primarily used for cutting. So because of that, you can score with the entire length of the blade. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that they're all holding sabers, even that girl in the back who doesn't have a glove on her weapon hand, which is required. If you are caught practicing without at least a mask and a glove on, first offense is a warning, second offense is a black card. So it is absolutely required to wear a glove on the right hand. But what everyone is using is supposed to be sabers, but you can actually see that they all have a barrel at the end of it. So it's not even a saber, it's sort of like a hybrid weapon. It's a combination between a saber and a foil or an epee. The ends of the blades look almost the same. I'm not sure how they got a hold of these, because you can't even get a hybrid of these weapons by accident. Whoever was in the props department took a bunch of sabers, removed the blades, and then put different blades from a different weapon on them, which I have no idea why they would do. It's more effort to make something even less realistic, but it's what they have. So yeah, I'm just really confused by why those are there, who made them, and why they made them. But it's definitely, I've seen the whole scene, it's definitely the biggest thing that they get wrong, and it's just funny.
Allez.
So, 3 things I want to mention. First of all, the coach's callouts. In fencing, there are 3 standard calls to be made before fencers fence each other. In English, they're known as en garde, ready, fence. The same phrase is in French: en garde, prêt, aller. So the first thing we see is the removal of prêt, which is ready. Aller in French means go. He didn't say prêt, he didn't say ready. That's a bigger deal than you might think. Fencers depend very heavily on those three callouts. When they say en garde, the two fencers are at the en garde lines, facing each other and ready to go. When they say ready or prêt, the two fencers are in their en garde positions. When they say en garde, they might be a little bit out of position. When they say prêt, they're expected to be in position, ready to fence at the drop of a hat. Basically, lack of movement indicates that you are ready. Then they say fence and they go. So fencers depend very heavily on hearing the right call out. They're used to hearing en garde first, then they're used to hearing ready, then they're used to hearing fence. If one of them is skipped, it can throw the fencer off a little bit. So in practice, if you have a ref who's new to the callouts, then it's not a big deal. But if it ever happened at a tournament, I'm not sure what would happen because it never happens in a tournament. The refs are expected to know at least those few things. So the fact that the coach is not getting them right indicates that he doesn't have a whole lot of working knowledge about fencing. The second thing I want to bring up is the fact that she just fell over a ledge as a consequence of having too small of an area. This is why you never want to fence too close to a wall or a ledge or something like that, especially if it's something behind you, because you can accidentally run into something. The third thing is this girl basically beating up on her opponent. I'm not going to go ahead and say that all fencers like each other, because we don't. But all fencers are expected to treat each other with respect in a sportsmanlike manner. This is what's known as touches made with brutality, and it is highly discouraged. The fact that it's being allowed already says that this class isn't meant to teach anyone, it's meant to just have showdowns between the students. But considering this is a movie, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that.
That wasn't terrible, considering it was just your first time.
Switch partners. Grigori, come on over. On guard. Allez.
So that's already another glaring flop to the coach and the fencer. You are meant to be standing in en garde position facing your opponent when the ref says ready, and then when they say fence. So the fact that he was facing away from his opponent and then quickly whipped around and attacked when they said fence, that never happens. Not even in drills or exercises, it just does not happen. It is dangerous, and it kind of implies that he's an asshole. So let's keep going. Okay, so let's pause it there. Something that he did was a move known as the flesh. Now, in foil and epee, the flesh is this charging attack that is meant to get the drop on your opponent outside the bounds of a regular attack. It's the only attack that actually allows you to not only move off the strip, but to pass your opponent as well. Every attack in fencing has a recovery period, the very end of the attack where you can recover and keep going in case the attack fails. A flesh is the only move where the recovery period involves you going past your opponent off the strip and you actually keep running so that they can't turn around and hit you. If certain conditions are met, then the fencer can attack you after you've passed them. So it is in your best interest to keep going even if you miss. However, that's foil and epee. Saber, it is not allowed. It was allowed, but for various reasons, it was disbanded. So the fact that he did means that this already is not a modern, realistic fencing class.
Very good. One more. I'm God.
The coach is not calling halt very often. After every action, every time someone arrives on their opponent, then they're supposed to stop and reset. So there should have been several times where someone hit and they stopped fencing and reset. Even if they didn't, then there's no reason for big dramatic pauses. I think it's very obvious as to why that part is not realistic.
Allez. We're going home. Right. Both of you, halt.
So, this is something that I've seen in a few different movies and shows with fencing that I actually find to be very disrespectful. Is the fact that two fencers are going at it, and whoever is reffing them is continually calling halt. In fencing, you are supposed to listen for the person say halt. If you do not stop immediately, then usually that's fine. We're humans, we're not machines, we make mistakes. So if a ref calls halt and you don't stop immediately, it's usually fine, because usually you don't stop, you either have momentum or you just didn't hear them. If the ref thinks that someone is still going because they didn't hear, then they'll call halt again, louder, and very occasionally even a third time in quick succession. You are expected to stop moving when the ref calls halt, because if you keep going, then that is deliberate brutality against your opponent, which is a huge mark against you. In most situations, that is enough to get you kicked out and even banned from the sport. The reason why I really don't like it when scenes depict fencers not stopping after halt is it implies that these fencers, just have no respect for their coach, which is also very rare. I'm not going to say that every single coach out there is, the best one. There are a few fencing coaches that, they may know how to fence, but they don't always know how to teach and they don't always know how to lead. Now, that's for the most part not true. Like, I personally would take a bullet for my coach, and I know of a lot of other fencers that say the same about theirs. So, the fact that fencers are, I hate to say it, but commonly seen in media as ignoring their coach or ignoring their ref and continuing to fence, and in this case, not even fence, but start to fight even after the ref is trying to get them to stop, that is very disrespectful. And it honestly pisses me off every time I see it. So I already don't like these two. You can't argue that only one of them is doing it, and the other is just defending herself, but really, they're both engaging. If you actually want to defend yourself from someone who should have stopped fencing a while ago and is just trying to, you know, beat you down instead of actually fence you, that person is mentally unhinged, and if it were me, I would just run. It doesn't matter if, I knew whether or not I'd be able to defend myself. It doesn't matter if I could try to get them to stop with my blade. I wouldn't. I would back off. I would be like, dude, what is happening? What is wrong with you? One of them may be defending herself, but she certainly isn't trying to de escalate the situation. She's not really attempting to disengage herself from this, this mentally unhinged, violent person. So, yeah, I really hate it when I see this kind of thing in fencing scenes in media. It's very disrespectful. And then, of course, the whole soulful lovers looking into each other's eyes after the action is done, which also is not very realistic, or at least not in my case. No one's ever done it to me. So that was the end of the fencing scene. This is probably one of the most inaccurate things I've ever seen for several reasons. It's not even that long. The whole thing takes about 2 minutes, but it is just riddled with blatant faults. If anyone saw this and decided to try fencing because of it, you know, hey, at least it got someone into fencing, but don't expect this to be the reality. But it provided a few good laughs. So I guess there's that. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.